all of you educators. Welcome to Elevating Educators. Today we have a really awesome guest. She is someone that speaks on behalf of the people and truly listens to her constituents. This is School Board Trustee for Clark County School District, Trustee Cavazos. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, Jessica and Ryan. I'm happy to be here with you, and thank you for the invite.
We appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule, even though we know you're affected with your business, with your practice, with the coronavirus and everything going on with school board. We appreciate you coming and visiting with us today.
I'm glad to do it. I really miss the social interaction. So I just don't know if I'll ever want to be on a Google Meet or a Zoom after all of this is over in my entire life for the rest of my life.
You know what I was thinking, though? We could kind of streamline things with it in case families can't make it to a conference or
right.
when we integrate back, but I still really miss human connection.
Yeah, I do too. It's especially in my profession, I'm getting some pushback from some of my clients that I thought would really just like jump into it. Even some of the younger ones, who are way more adept at the technology, they're just like, well, why can't you come in? I'll sit far away from you. I won't hug you. I won't touch you. And I said, well, right now it's probably not a good idea. And actually my building is partially shut down right now by management, so it would be difficult.
So in case viewers don't know, can you explain your background in education, what your current job is, other than being a school board trustee?
Oh, I'd be glad to. I was a CCSD teacher for 15 years in two different time frames. So I taught at basic high school both times. I did some substituting. I was one of those middle of the year graduates, so I had a chance to substitute and, get around to all the different schools, look at the different areas. And I also come from a family of educators. My older brother was a high school teacher, a Spanish teacher, and a basketball coach for, I think he made it to like 32 years. And his wife, my sister-in-law, was an elementary school teacher and ended up being an elementary school principal in Phoenix, Arizona.
It's in your blood.
Oh, yeah. I even have a school board trustee that was a trustee in a small district in Arizona. And I wouldn't be able to use, because this is a family show, I presume, I wouldn't be able to use the advice that she gave me when she found out that I was running for trustee. I'll leave that there.
Now, what subject did you teach, out of curiosity?
My major was language arts, so I taught composition, literature. I had several electives, world literature, short story. I think one of my favorites, thinking back at basic high school, was creative writing. That was a program that I started out there, and it was just one of my very favorites. My minor was sociology, so I did teach that for a few years. And for a couple of years there in the PE department, they got really desperate and found out that I also had a minor in dance. And so they drafted me into the coach's den, and that was an interesting experience. I was working a second job, sometimes a third job. So it was very interesting to walk into that classroom at 6:45, 7:15, depending on the schedule, have my students look at me, and they knew that they probably should not move a muscle until I'd finished that first cup of coffee, because they knew that I had just gotten off my job at about 1 o'clock in the morning as a waitress. So that was interesting.
I think knowing that you were an English and sociology teacher and dance, from my perspective, that's helped you learn to critically think and served you well on the board.
I would say so, yes. Yes, it absolutely has.
Yeah. Now, what made you decide to go from the classroom to becoming a counselor?
Well, I actually was getting married, and so my husband-to-be was getting transferred to Atlanta, Georgia. His promotion was based on his willingness to move. I wasn't really too thrilled at that point. I was up for a department chair. I was looking forward to it. Loved my school that I teached at. Listen to me, a teacher, teached at, that I was teaching at. We have to have at least one of those or it wouldn't be real, okay? I was very hesitant to leave. I just absolutely loved my school community, my students, the parents. I still stay in contact with them. But I went out and I did some interviews in Georgia, had some jobs tentatively lined up. And 3 months after I signed that paper, taking my money, some of my money, there was a deal offered at that time out of PERS, they canceled his transfer. And so, yes, they canceled his transfer. He still got the promotion. I'm just going to tell you right now, I still hold a grudge against AT&T. So actually, I would probably still be getting close to retirement right now and would probably never have left my teaching job because I already had turned down offers to go into administration.
Wow.
I had no interest in going to administration. So here I am. Right? I can see Ryan laughing up there in the corner.
So that leads us to the next question. So what made you go and run for school board?
Well, I think I have to backtrack a little bit to where Jessica was asking me about the background. So there I am. I won't say that I was in the best possible mood on the day that my husband came home and told me that we were not moving to Atlanta. And I'd signed that little paper, and the most that I could get if I went back to the school district was that after 15 years was going to be 5 years of seniority. So I looked at, yes, I'm going to be quite honest about that. So I looked at my options. I thought about what I wanted to do, and I decided I needed a little bit more time to think about it. So I did some educational consulting. I did some seminars. I thought about what I really wanted to do, and I realized that a lot of my teaching career, and I'm sure you guys would agree with me, is actually counseling with the students, listening to them, hearing their stories, interacting with them. So I went to UNLV, checked into the counseling program, looked at the different tracks, considered becoming a school counselor. And then one of my good friends, who was a marriage and family therapist and also did trauma, said, hey, I just want you to come out and do some rounds with me, come out to the hospital with me, come out and do some adolescent groups. I was hooked. Totally fell in love with the track. Did not fall in love with the long course of study, the 3,000 hours of internship, and you have to do a round in every single one. School counseling. I did most of my internship down at Juvenile Hall right here in Clark County. Wow. So, that could be some relevant experience that kind of helped me, not with dealing with the kids, though, but with helping with the adults, so. So I'm going to get back to Ryan's question. What made me decide to run for trustee? Ryan, I would have to say that it was a combination of both my teaching and my experience as far as being a counselor, because a large part of my practice at the beginning, especially the first 7 or 8 years, when you're trying to get your name out there, you're doing advertising, you're trying to get known in the medical community, had to do with kids. And I saw children from the ages of 4 years old up to 18, and then also adults. I also, because of some personal experiences in my own family where I lost a younger brother to suicide, I attended a lot of trauma groups, suicide support groups. That became a large part of my practice. And I also did a lot of work for Clark County Family Services. So I think that integration of that experience, that when I learned that my trustee, Aaron Craner, was going to be leaving to go to law school, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if we want to call it the insanity gene, or if it's just, it was just something that clicked, and it had to do with missing being more directly involved with the school, because at this time I was getting a lot of, and I still do, I still get a lot of referrals from social workers, school psychologists, school counselors, where the families need a little bit more outside intervention. So I would have to say it was kind of a perfect storm coming together at that time.
Yeah, you're a huge advocate for mental health on that panel. Like, huge. That's what, as a school counselor and the school psychologist, we all are like, yay! We have
I appreciate that. I try to be, Jessica. I really try to be. It's such an important component.
It really is, especially when we come back after all of this.
Yes.
What are the ups and downs that you've learned from being a trustee?
How much time do we have? You know, I knew this day was coming. Let's see, don't touch my face. I keep doing that. You caught me on a day where I'm feeling just kind of, I have my politically correct days, and I have my, I'm just Linda, and I'm letting it all hang out. And I don't know, I chose this day, so I can't blame it on you guys, but this is one of those, like, let it all hang out. Can you give me a category so I can, like, narrow it down a little bit?
What is the biggest lesson you've learned so far? If you could name one, like the biggest lesson that you learned from being a trustee.
I would have to say, Jessica, that it's the relationships. And when I say the relationships, that's not only the relationships within the board itself and with the other folks that are involved in central services, but primarily the relationships with my community. And that community includes my teachers working at all the schools, includes the kids, the parents, the community leaders. I've lived here a long time, and I've lived with exception of, I think, maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years, I lived my entire time in District G. So this was a community that I knew very well. My kids attended District G schools. So, you know, I was very well acclimated with that. But the relationships still never cease to amaze me, that if we don't nurture those relationships, whether it's the school culture, the school climate, the individual teachers, our support professionals, our kids, if we don't nurture those relationships, the trust and the respect and the value that everybody here in our district feels, it just falls by the wayside, and it affects everything.
Absolutely.
So that's been a very important lesson that I've learned.
I would agree. Ryan and I have been watching school board meetings for
a long time.
Oh, you dear people, and you still look good. You still look good. You don't look like you're going to be committed anytime soon, or
we can just be the annoying complainers, I guess. But this is the first, I would say this is a huge shift with the new, I wouldn't call you new anymore, but.
I'm not new anymore.
You're not new. The last few years have been, you guys are more accessible. We can talk to you guys on social media. You're very responsive. Email. And I'm telling you, in the beginning, when I first started in CCSD, Ryan's the same. Emails would go unanswered. So social media maybe wasn't as big. So I think you're a part of that. You're one of the trustees that I always tell people, you have an issue? Email Linda Cavazos.
Oh, so it's you. I thought it was just Ryan and some of these other folks, you know.
I'll in your district for all my life, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And some of the worst nights that I have, not just since this has started, but always, I would say even as a teacher, are when either because there's been a crisis, and as you well know, we've had lots of crises, and we've had some pretty sad things happen in our district involving our families and our kids. The worst nights for me are when I wasn't able, and I realize I can't get back to everyone if I have 100 emails in one day, but, you know, to at least acknowledge them, to say, I hear you, or we're sending this on to someone else. And I've learned that if it's something that it is in my field of expertise, I will let other people within the district know that I'm responding. But if I can tell that somebody is really in crisis or really needs help, I'll go ahead and respond to them myself. So I'll either pick up the phone or I'll send them a text to see if it's okay to call them, an email, anything. Just kind of the worst feeling in the world is for people to feel like they're being ignored and they're not important enough to respond to. And
Right.
that's actually been documented in psychological research.
Sidetracking, this just triggered a story. When I first started school counseling at MAC, we used to have a lot of refugees before political things made them stop coming. And I had a group of kids from, they spoke Kinderwesa, and it was an island off of near Africa. But it's nothing on Google Translate. Nobody can speak it in the district until recently. And anyway, what I'm getting at is a bunch of the kids needed something from me. They were trying to communicate through sign language, and it was super urgent, and I couldn't figure out what they needed, and nobody in the building could help them figure out what they needed, and nobody in the district could help them figure out what they needed. And I remember that was the worst night I ever had of sleep. Right. I cried the whole night because I was just, how do I help them? And I couldn't stop thinking about them, right. And I kept thinking, can I bring them to my home and put them in a room and take care of them? Because eventually they acquired English, and I figured out that what their needs were. But what I'm saying is I totally empathize with you. Right. You're talking about those daunting thoughts of, did I help that community? Did I help that family member? And it's hard to turn it off.
It is. It is really hard to turn it off. And, there's different things that I will use. I'm a big reader, so I'll lose myself, in a book. I'm not a huge TV watcher. I will go ahead and go on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, binge watch some of my favorite shows, but I have something popping up on my screen. Oh, upgraded host. Okay, I've been upgraded. Okay.
Sorry for the interruption, but they gave me a warning, be like, we only have 10 minutes left, and otherwise $15. Otherwise they're going to shut this off. And I'm like, I'm going to have to upgrade right now.
I upgrade. Okay. I always appreciate anybody upgrading me on anything. Whether it's my cheeseburger, my smoothie, my glass of wine, whatever, I'll take it. But Jessica, you're absolutely correct on that. And I know Ryan has gone through this. I don't think I've ever spoken to a teacher at any level that has not expressed that. I did teach at UNLV for 9 years as an adjunct part-timer because I had no money and I had to have a little bit of money coming in as I attempted to launch a private practice. And I have to say that the shock of going from a high school teacher to a UNLV instructor and finding out that the UNLV instructors, I don't care whether they're part-time or full-time, and I don't want to stereotype all of them, but I'm just going to say it wasn't the same kind of vibe. It just wasn't. And I missed my kids so much. I just missed them so much. And they threw me right into senior level and grad classes. They didn't even start me out with, like English 101 or something like that. It was right into the 400 and 500 classes. So there's a difference in experience.
That's crazy. I was going to say, because we were talking about memories, and I've gone through a lot personally in terms of having a student killed by a DUI driver. I've had a kid murdered on my campus. So going through all that trauma that we go through, people don't realize how big it is and how much it affects all of us.
Absolutely. And I think that right now, Ryan, with what we're going through, I know the word unprecedented is used constantly, but we just basically, all of us here, have never been through anything like this. Our kids, our parents, grandparents, neighbors, anybody. And the trauma that already existed in the district, in our nation, in our state, has been those things that were already there. And I'm not just talking about the digital divide that everybody seems to think that's the only thing that is causing an issue right now. It is a factor, but I'm talking about the social emotional aspects. And remember, we were talking about relationships. I'm hearing from teachers, support professionals, parents that they said, I do still love my husband or wife. I do love my children, but tell me what to do so that I don't end up in jail. And I said, well, let's start there. Let's start there. But this is all the stress, the anxiety of not knowing what's going to happen, the day-to-day, sometimes hour-to-hour changes. And even for me, the number of emails that we get, and then I go back and try to sort through those and then look at the media releases and try to look at, did I know about this? Did I not know about this? And if I didn't know about this, why didn't I? And how can I keep my district and my constituents and my teachers and everybody, my parents, informed if nobody tells me? And so that's when the real Linda comes out. I do come from primarily a Latino family, 6 children. Discussions around the dinner table, if we would have had 911 in that little rural mountain town that I grew up in, our neighbors would have been calling every night. But it was just, and we had different political persuasions from the 2 parents. And so I was raised in very open, with the differing viewpoints, and we were always invited civilly and with respect to express our opinions. And that's something that right now I see some people not doing. And I try to promote that as much as possible at our meetings, at our trainings, at our schools. And I know you guys do too. But the trauma, I don't think that unless you're familiar with the educational environment, if you've actually been out there in the trenches, I call it in the trenches.
It is.
It is. But they're trenches that we chose to go into. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you that of all the jobs that I've had, the therapist job, it's pretty close right up there. But I would have to put it a smidge behind my teacher job. That was my dream job. And it just, staying in contact right now, even with my students from basic. If I hear a voice behind me at the airport, at the school board meeting, at one of the schools, and some of them are employees now, right? In all different levels, I'll just say that right now. And if I hear, "Hey, Miss C," coming up from behind me, because that's what I was called, I know that's a student from basic, because my name was not Cavazos at that time. It was a different name, but it also started with a C, but that was what they called me.
So you talked a lot about trauma. We're all experiencing trauma on some level. And what do you think that's going to look like when we return in the fall?
I think without even knowing what it's going to look like definitively, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a more definitive and conclusive update next Thursday at the board meeting, because I see that has been added on. I think it's going to be a huge challenge. We're going to be looking at a whole new world of how we're going to be teaching our kids. And, of course, the other factor, the safety, ensuring the safety of our children, of our teachers, all of our staff, everyone. They all have to be protected. And so I think that this has been the biggest factor with people contacting me. It's the not knowing or getting the conflicting messages. We got this message yesterday. We got this message this evening. And, sometimes I sit there and I say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and give you a heads up. You're going to get another message tomorrow morning. And it's probably not going to match with the same message you got yesterday. And that anxiety, that stress level, it just, sometimes it spirals out of control. And so I think that we need to be prepared for that. and we need to be prepared for adjusting and looking at how we can best serve the needs of our students, but also not forget that you guys are the ones that are taking care of our kids. You guys are the ones that are going to be there with them. If we don't take care of you and all our support professionals, everyone, what are we saying to our kids? The people that are taking care of you every day for several hours a day, when we're not with you, the parents, we have to take care of you. We have to. And that applies to our substitutes also. That applies to everyone.
Support staff, substitutes, anybody that's in the vicinity of education.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think the role of a teacher is going to look like when we go back, in terms of how the teacher is going to respond emotionally, maybe potentially like the job of a teacher, like based on what you know so far, like what changes do you see happening?
I think that it's going to be, I hate to keep using this word, but I think that it is going to be more stressful for you guys as far as considering the safety factor. You're already going through, and we have to realize that a lot of our teachers had already been using distance learning, especially at some of our schools, and some teachers were just more skillful at it, and it wasn't as big of a learning curve for them. But when we go back, obviously, technology, I feel, there is no way to ignore the fact that technology is going to be a bigger part of our educational, should we say, circle. But as far as the teaching role, I think that a lot of it is going to depend on not just the directives that come down from us, the district. And might I say that whenever I decide that I'm leaving this teaching job, this trustee job. See, I've got teaching on the brain. I'm looking at two great teachers here, teaching on the brain here. Wishful thinking, right?
Teaching us.
I guess I have to say that consistency in messaging and having our employees really understand what it is that we would like them to do, and having some consistency in the district among the different levels, and even just giving you an example recently that I know caused a lot of stress. And I heard from parents, I heard from a lot of students, because I give students my cell phone number. I give them my email so they can contact me. They contact me on Twitter. They'll contact me on Instagram. They'll contact me wherever they can find me. But one of the things that was just recently was, how are those third quarter grades going to be opened up? How are they going to be looked at? And then, again, letting it all hang out today, the message was not consistent. And there were different things happening at different schools. And believe me, I was hearing from those people. I had families that had kids at one middle school, at one high school. I had kids that were from the same family at a magnet school, at a comprehensive school, and the administration was allowing different things. Mm-hmm. That's stressful. Mm-hmm. Somebody outside the educational community is not going to understand exactly how stressful that is in this time when we don't know what's going to happen with our health, our communities, our parents who are laid off, people that are worrying about getting food on the table, paying their rent, do they have enough gas in their car? Everything. It's all intertwined.
Right. Thank you for acknowledging that there are inconsistencies sometimes in our communications, just because with anything that is sent out, the interpretation is different at every single site. And so, like you said, some schools are only allowing kids to move up one letter grade, and then other schools
will let them do an F10A if it's doable.
And so, and
I think pretty much, I'm hoping that the communications that you guys have received, and sometimes I just save a lot of time by asking the teacher, just if you don't even want to tell me your name, if you just want to, just like block that off the communication, send me the communication, take off the name of the school if you don't want to include that, whatever. I just want to see what the communication is so I can compare it with what's happening in the other schools. I think as far as that particular factor, that's been pretty much, I hope, clarified at this point.
For sure.
But our messaging, when you have a crisis, when you have something where we don't know what's going to happen from day to day, and we're waiting for each of those timelines, whether it is from the state superintendent, our superintendent, us, the governor, whoever, we need clear and consistent messaging. If something is so general that there are multiple interpretations that can be gleaned from it that are then going to cause more misinformation, then we're not doing a good job. I'm just going to say that right now. And as a former English teacher, I cringe if I even see a grammatical error. You can imagine what I do if I see a communication that, let's just say, it's not up to my standards as far as communicating with our employees and what they deserve to be hearing.
Sure. Thank goodness we got an English person, a mental health person, all of it. One, Linda Cavazos. We're going to end our interview with 3 elevating educator questions that we ask every guest, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Got the first one?
I'll do the first one. Trustee Cavazos, what does your dream school look like?
My dream school. Do you want me to include all factors, or do you want to limit it? Are we talking about?
Flesh it out. Give us all the details.
Okay. All right. So my dream school, first of all, the most important component are the people inside, not the physical structure. So my dream school would look like some of the schools that I have walked into. When I walk into it, I can just feel the level of comfort, and I don't want to say happiness, I'll say comfort, and the climate makes me feel welcome as soon as I walk in. The interior and exterior are also welcoming. I have to throw in the safety factor as somebody who has worked a lot on having schools be safe from gun violence and all kinds of threats to our children. It would have to be a school that, to me, presents a safe exterior, gives both the teachers, the staff, the families, and the community, and most importantly, the kids, a feeling that this is someplace where I'm going to be safe. The people inside, when I walk through the halls, there is a lot of student work all over the place. I cannot do more than 3 schools visits in one day because I'm always late, because from the very first school, I want to stay longer, and then I'm late to the next one because I want to look at all the projects where a teacher will stop to talk to me, and they want to tell me about something they're going to be doing in the future, and would I come back and look at that? So my dream school is one in where the school climate and the culture and everybody in that school community, you can tell that they are invested in that school, and they're invested in their children's achievement, they're invested in their children's happiness at that school, and everybody feeling welcome. And again, I just have to throw in that safety factor. I just did an intake session on, I think it was Saturday, with a young lady, 5th grade, and so of course she was going to be going into middle school. She was finishing up elementary school, and I could tell that something was really bothering her, and she wasn't comfortable with FaceTime. She didn't like it, so I thought maybe it was just that. We got to the end of the interview, and she says, well, she says, I'm kind of scared now. I'm really, really, really scared. So I try not to put words in the children's mouths. I want to see, I didn't want to assume, are you scared because of the virus? Are you scared because you haven't seen your friends, your teachers, whatever? She was scared, and I will go ahead and admit this is not the first student that's told me this. She wasn't going to have time like she had planned to go to her new middle school and to check out all the safe places and all the exits and where she could get out. She had it memorized because she had gone to the same elementary school from kindergarten through 5th grade. And sometimes you just want to cry. You
Yeah,
just,
I have students like that.
yeah,
That's all that their anxiety is about, is just
right.
fear of something like that happening.
Well, she said that one good thing was that she wasn't having to do, like the hard lockdowns and soft lockdowns and everything. She was happy about that. She was very anxious about this. So we ended up, she told me the name of her new middle school. It wasn't in my district, but I just went online and printed out kind of like a schematic. We looked at it, and then we did kind of like online, we kind of did like, like pretend, desks, and where the teacher would sit and where the cafeteria was. And we just kind of did like tactile as much as we could online, and it kind of alleviated her anxiety a bit.
Bless you for doing that. That's amazing.
And it was hard for me because I can't even draw a stick figure. Okay, I had to download everything and print it out.
Snap and do a thing behind me.
Right.
More creative one. I could do the technical stuff, but all the graphics and everything, all
No.
good.
All right. Great.
All right. So second question is, and we know as a trustee, teacher, counselor, psychologist, you've heard a lot of things. But what is your most annoying educational buzzword?
I have a few. Can I only use one or one phrase? I have a few.
You can give a couple.
So I'll use one that's kind of long-standing one. Rich and rigorous. Everything's going to be rich and rigorous. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a deep dive. That's a great educational question. If I hear that one more time, I don't know. I might jump off and jump off the desk and cut off the mic or whatever. But the other thing is when any kind of, and I'll just kind of put it in a category, I could go on forever on this, is anything where something is presented to me as being evidence-based and data-based, and then when I ask one question about the data, it's not there. So if something's presented to me as being evidence-based, then I really would like to see the evidence for more than like 2 weeks. So I'm picky like Jessica, right?
I have one final question for you, but before we go, when we stop recording, can you stay on for a little bit? I just wanted to talk.
Sure. It'll keep me from eating my husband's popcorn. He'll be happy about that.
So what do you put on your popcorn?
My husband makes the popcorn. He makes the most fantastic. He makes it an old-fashioned corn popper with the olive oil and the sea salt. And then when he's not looking, I pour a whole bunch of butter on it.
That's nice too. All right. So the last question is, who has been the most influential teacher in your life? And this can be a real teacher or a fictional teacher.
Wow. That's a tough one, Jessica, because, I've had a lot of teachers, even at UNLV. I had an English teacher, and I'm going to have to tell him I mentioned his name. He's probably going to be embarrassed. I still stay in contact with him on Facebook, but he still hasn't quite mastered social media. So he was one of my high school English teachers. His name is John Schown, and he was one of the first teachers that I ran into in high school that wasn't afraid to say a phrase that I found was one of my important phrases to use as an educator. And that was, Linda, if you don't know the answer, please stop trying to BS me and just say, I don't know. I'll get back to you. Give your student the chance to look it up. And he would just say, and he was a fairly new teacher. He was like 2 or 3 years into the profession when I had him as an English teacher. And I had him twice as a 10th grader and as a 12th grader. And he had a huge influence. And he said, you will never have very many discipline problems If you respect your students, you respect your colleagues, they will respect and they will trust you. And that word trust is an extremely important word to me. So a lot of different teachers, but I'm going to pick John Schown for today.
He sounds awesome. I'm glad he shaped you into who you are today.
He did a lot. He shaped me sometimes in both, shall we say, very, very happy ways, and other ways it was like, my name at that time was Pacheco. That was my maiden name. He wouldn't say Linda. He'd say Pacheco out in the hall. Another important thing. You never denigrate a child, a student, in front of other kids. But always take us out in the hall. Sometimes that involved, I lived in a rural community, so our high school had multiple flights of stairs within, and sometimes taking you outside meant you're standing right next to the mountain wall. You're standing right next to the mountain. So
at least it's not in front of peers. That's awesome.
Right.
So
Never.
All right. So in case someone doesn't know how to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
I always give out my my work cell, and I'll give it out right now. It's 702-908-4026. You can text me there, or just pick up the phone and call me if I can't get back to you right away. Leave me a message or whatever, or follow it up with a text. My personal email is Cavazos, my last name, cavazoscounseling@yahoo.com. And I'm pretty sure almost everybody has my district email, or they know where to find it. But that work cell, and also too, even on my Facebook profile, I'm pretty sure I've put it on my Twitter numerous times. My personal cell is 702-573-9977. And that's the one that a lot of my students have. And, they just text me. And they're very understanding, especially the student advisory committee that I was the trustee for that. They've been great.
So fun. I just adopted a senior. I'm so excited.
You did? On the Facebook page?
Yes. My husband thinks it's weird, but I was like, it's super fun. I went,
Some of my family thought it was weird too. I ended up with two. Two seniors. Yeah, I know. I think it was great. It was something that was really, really cool for these two ladies who set it up to do, and it turned out to be a lot of work.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate
it. It's my pleasure.